Certainly for the US and Europe, there are some problems, one of which I think is not as serious, one of which is troubling. The not as serious problem is when statements come up about whether Europe can rely on the United States, is Europe in a position that Europe can actually defend itself? Is it in a position to actually be more reasonable in its defense expenditures, etc.? The more troubling question is whether or not Europe can trust the United States. Judging by the European reaction from President Trump's decision to leave the Paris Accords on climate change, there is that question that Europe is concerned that some issues that matter to them very much are issues where they simply are on a different page from the United States. I think that it's clear that President Putin has an attitude towards the Western institutions, among them the Transatlantic Alliance, NATO, and the European Union, and indeed much of the architecture of post-war world, that he sees as problematic for Russia, that he sees Russia's weakness as a result of actions taken by NATO, taken by the EU. Therefore, it could indeed be an opportunity for Russia to say, those institutions that have kept Russia back, whether or not we believe that's true or not, that this is an opportunity to weaken them. Between the United States and Russia, can it go beyond the area that many have talked about, which is cooperation in counterterrorism? And this is something that the East-West Institute has worked in, finding out where there's common ground between Russia and the United States, even during times of some disagreement. One example is in counter-narcotics. EWI has studied that and found there is common ground between the United States, Russia, and even other countries. A different example is cybersecurity. Most of the attention we hear about cyber are the accusations of Russian meddling in the United States election. But actually, EWI has found that Americans working with Russians on such things as cybersecurity for finance, cybersecurity against international criminality, these are areas where we, the Russians and others, can work together. So there is that possibility of cooperation. It's just a matter of finding it. I would argue against the idea of having a grand strategy. I would have more of an attitude, an impulse, that we have to make an investment in trust. What we have to do to get past this era of mistrust is to invest in people who are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. Leaders in the Russian political apparatus, people in the Duma, business leaders, people in the independent sector. That is, people who are going to be the leaders of a Russia of tomorrow who can be people we can trust, people who've learned about what we want to do and find common cause with us. This isn't a grand strategy, but I think it's the only way forward.